How's it going, everyone? My name is Derek Afasi. I'm the owner of Afasi Financial Group and RetireSharp.com. Today's topic, I want to discuss in detail how to withdraw monies from your 401k account, whether you sever employment and you're still during your working years, your working stages, or when you start nearing retirement or currently retired, and how to take proper withdrawal strategies from your 401k. So to get started, what exactly, is a 401k, or at least, just kind of a rundown on what a 401k is. Obviously, the individuals watching this video probably have a 401k or 403b or other type of qualified retirement account. But ultimately, if you break it down to simplistic terms and you think of it like a bucket, understand that this bucket, known as the 401k, grows by two major components. The one side is the contributions that the employee is making, the contributions that the employer might have been matching. So that's one side. And then the other side is the rate of return, meaning the different investment strategies that they leveraged within that 401k account. And understanding this concept will help delegate, what to do, whether you hit a qualifying event such as you severed employment at one company, you're working for a new company. Does it make sense to take that 401k, transfer it over to the new 401k? Does it make sense to take the 401k, roll it over into a traditional IRA, invest the monies on your own? What is kind of the components or the pros and cons off of the growth of a 401k, and then ultimately, some of the common mistakes that are made with withdrawal strategies or rollover strategies, and then some different solutions that might be beneficial for your situation. So first I want to walk through an example off of somebody that's still during their working phase. So there's a few different ways on how retirement planning works as a whole. You have one side, which is known as the wealth accumulation phase. And then you have the later years, which is known as wealth preservation and distribution. So when someone's in the wealth accumulation phase, they're trying to accumulate as many dollars as possible, meaning place monies into savings, such as into their employer 401k plan, and try to get good rates of return that are at least better than the pace of inflation, to have a return on their money year by year by year, to have those dollars grow, the monies that they're savings, they're growing further and further and further. Well, then when it gets to that point where the individual no longer works, rather than try to take on that risk and have that sort of strategy that's trying to accumulate this wealth, what they're trying to do at that point is now change around that strategy to preserve the monies that they've already accumulated and take a proper distribution strategy. So when we're looking at it from the individual that's still working and still has, let's call it, over 5 years left before they retire. So you could have about 20 years out, 10 years out, 5 years out from retirement, whatever the case might be. What might be a decent withdrawal strategy from the 401k with this sort of phase? And this is only for individuals that are eligible. So you have to have some sort of qualifying event that takes place. A qualifying event could be that you've been, laid off, or you left one company and now you start working for another company or working for yourself. So basically, termination of employment is typically going to be the main qualification when you are, trying to do a type of withdrawal strategy while you're still working. Sometimes when you have one 401k company gets taken over by a different 401k company, they might allow their employees to take the dollars and roll those monies over into an IRA rather than get set up and just continue the plan with the new 401k company. So there's a couple of actual qualifying events that have to take place in order for you to be able to leverage this sort of plan. But for argument's sake, let's just say that you severed employment, you have a 401k that's sitting at a previous employer. How can you leverage those old funds to make sure that it's going to be effective and efficient towards what your wealth accumulation goal might be? And this is when we go back to the bucket example. So for that situation, we understand that as the individual was working for their employer, they were offered a retirement plan known as the 401k, and they were saying, okay, you could go and take money from your paycheck, on a biweekly basis, monthly basis, and make contributions into your 401k plan. As an incentive, typically companies, as an incentive to participate into your 401k plan, they might give you a type of match. So if someone's making hypothetically $100,000 in a given year and they say, hey, I want to put away 10% of my salary, but the company's only matching them 3%, this means that the employee put away $10,000 and the company put away $3,000 for them. So therefore, $13,000 in this example is being contributed to this 401k plan year by year by year. On top of it, it's not just going into a random bucket that doesn't have any sort of growth. There's a rate of return that's associated with this bucket, and this is why individuals leverage their different investment options. So with a typical 401k plan, you could see investment choices of anywhere between about 5 to about 25 different options to choose. So if somebody wanted to be super aggressive, meaning that they thought the stock market was going to be doing really well, then they could go into a type of aggressive strategy that might be linked to like an S&P 500 or an EFA index, like an international index, or some other type of asset class that might be a little bit, further aggressive. So therefore, with that person that's optimistic on what's going on with the market, they understand, like in this example, they put $13,000 or they put $10,000 of their salary into the 401k. The company matched $3,000, and if this rate of return came back positive because the market did well, then they have a positive from the contribution side, and they have a positive on the rate of return side. So therefore, the power of compound interest has inflated this bucket, has made this bucket larger, from the previous year. Pretty self-explanatory with how that concept works. So now when we fast forward and this person comes into a qualifying event, and we look at how the components of that formula work, if the person no longer works for that company, they can't make contributions into that 401k account. And also, if they no longer work for that company, there's no employer match that's going into this sort of bucket. So whatever they've accumulated from the previous years, the combination of contributions and rate of return, this is what's going to be what's sitting in that 401k account is going to be the size of that bucket. So therefore, when somebody goes and they sever employment, that's a qualifying event, and they leave their money on the basically on the sidelines with that previous employer, now they only have one component that's working in their favor, and that's the rate of return side. One of the things I just mentioned is that a typical 401k has limited investment options. They only have in between 5 to right around 25, if they're lucky, options to choose from, different investment options to choose from. So kind of think of these options as eggs in their basket. So obviously, if somebody has 5 options to choose from, they're going to have more limitations as opposed to 25 options to choose from. So this is why when someone has that qualification, such as they've been terminated from employment, or they just severed employment, they willingly severed employment, or there was a change in the 401k companies and they were allowing employees to go and roll over monies, what they would typically do is take this 401k that's sitting in a qualified retirement account and roll it over into a traditional IRA that's sitting, basically traditional being staying on the qualified side, so that you're not getting taxed when you do the rollover. That's the whole purpose of setting up a rollover. So a traditional IRA works somewhat similar, where when we look at the bucket side, the traditional IRA, if let's say somebody had $100,000 that was sitting in their 401k, they had that qualifying event, and they decide to roll over all their monies into a traditional IRA, technically the contribution for that year is $100,000 because that was considered the rollover. So that's obviously a positive $100,000 that's being placed into the account. And now this rate of return side, instead of being limited to the 5 to 25 different investment options that a 401k plan would limit that individual to, they might have anywhere between 2,000 to 5,000 different options to choose from on an IRA. They could customize. If they wanted to go more aggressive, they could find higher quality, lower cost funds with that IRA account than, because they have so many eggs in their basket. Now you have thousands of eggs, thousands of combinations, hundreds of combinations to leverage than the limitations of just the 5 to 25 different options. So this is why somebody would want to do that and want to roll over their monies, because ultimately, if they understand that their contribution, kind of think of it like a spigot, has turned off, and they're now just relying on the rate of return side, why would somebody stay within those limited options if they could get a better rate of return and possibly even a cheaper investment options with higher quality and better diversification by leveraging it on their own and leveraging it with with an IRA custodian? So that's the really simple answer when we're looking at the wealth accumulation phase, and somebody, is basically looking to retire and basically still has about 5 years left from retirement or over 5 years from retirement, and they said, hey, I have this old 401k, I have multiple, old 401ks. I just kind of left it alone, and I didn't realize that I actually had that opportunity to go and roll it over. Well, there are opportunities, and you could go and roll them over into customized IRAs. You could set up IRAs with something as simple as through like a bank CD, through a money market account. You could have it set up through an insurance company like a fixed annuity or fixed index annuity. You could have them set up through different investments like stocks, bonds, ETFs, index funds, whatever that case may be, whatever that preference is. It's all based upon that individual's risk tolerance. The first avenue is just basically understanding that yes, you do have options when that qualifying event does take place on what essentially you could do with these monies. Now, the opposite side of the coin is, remember, there's two parts of financial planning. You have that wealth accumulation side, and then you also have that wealth preservation and distribution side, where, rather than if someone's trying to accumulate their wealth, and let's say they're staying super aggressive, meaning that they're leaving their money exposed to the stock market and potential downward market losses. Well, and the market goes down. Obviously, I was just showing the example of the market went up or that investment strategy went up. Well, understand investments could go up and it could go down. It's going to ebb and flow based upon what sort of allocation that person chose. If the market goes down during this period where they're looking to pull out monies for retirement, that could be a nasty, nasty thing, and it could be a detriment and essentially result in individuals not being able to properly retire, having to work multiple dozens of years longer than what they projected they had to because their accounts took such a large hit. And like what I mean by that is, let's just say, well, obviously I could use like a 2001, you have the tech bubble bursting, 2008 was the Great Recession, where if somebody was invested with just say, the S&P 500 with just large cap US stocks, the average loss during that year was minus 37%. Let's say if they were a little bit heavily favored towards, more of an international route, this loss was much harder. So if somebody, even if somebody walked into the year with $1 million, which you think would be, more than enough to suffice their retirement needs, by taking, in that example, a 37% hit, or even if the market just took a hiccup of a minus 10% in that given year, that's that's basically like someone taking a sword and slicing the bucket. That's $100,000 that's now coming out of that account. That's $370,000 that's coming out of that account. So walked into the year with $100,000, walked out of the year at a minimum with $630,000. That's a lifestyle change. That's now saying, wow, you know what? I thought that I was able to pull out, 4% off of a $40,000 or $50,000 from this $1 million. Well, now if I do that, it's going to put further pressure against my account. And that would ultimately result in retirement failure and somebody outliving their retirement monies because of that market risk. That sequence of returns risk was so great, when they decide to retire. So I guess the point that I'm trying to make is you never want to have a accumulation type strategy when it comes to a distribution related plan. You never want to have a type of distribution or preservation related strategy when you're trying to really accumulate your monies and try to take on that risk, and you have that time horizon for for some successful growth years. So you want to make sure that you're able to turn off one component and turn on the other, and make sure that that transition is nice and fluid. So that brings me to my next example of saying, well, how exactly does that work when we're leveraging a wealth preservation and distribution strategy with the 401k withdrawals? So now we fast forward, and this person is nearing that retirement stage. Let's just say that they're, 3 years out from retirement. How exactly would somebody be able to leverage a proper withdrawal strategy from their 401k? And once again, there has to be a qualifying event. So this could be that someone has access to something known as an in-service its withdrawal, meaning that they've hit an attained age, and the 401k company allows them to take their 401k bucket and roll it over into an IRA or multiple IRAs, and basically customize their strategy based upon their retirement goal. So, rather than just taking a guess and having that aggressive accumulation strategy, there's ways on how you can customize your options, make sure that you're maximizing each strategy that's working, in tandem with one another, so that it works like a perfect puzzle piece. So one strategy could be for max income, another strategy could be for max, safety, emergency, and then the third strategy, the tertiary strategy, could be for, max growth or inflationary based growth on any of those discretionary monies. So, if I go through an example of, let's say somebody had $1 million that was sitting in their 401k account, and they're eligible to roll over their 401k monies, and they decide, okay, we're just going to go and roll that over into an IRA, but I'm still going to keep it into an aggressive portfolio, an aggressive allocation. Well, the downside to that is, like what I mentioned before, that reverse dollar cost averaging. You're susceptible, this individual could be susceptible to downward market losses. They're going to be susceptible to fees, whether that be mutual fund related fees, advisor related fees, which, if you think of it, that the bucket example, those are negatives, those are holes that are coming out of the bottom of the bucket. When the loss occurs, that's a slice coming out of the bottom, coming out of the bucket. And then on top of it, if they're trying to pull out income from this account, that's, a third or fourth negative that's basically putting pressure against this account. So on any years that the market goes down, that individual is going to feel those hiccups, especially if it happens right off of the, the time frame that the individual stops working. So, understand this is more of a question mark type strategy. It's not really a strategy. It's just, hoping that you're throwing a bunch of crap at the wall and hoping that it sticks and hoping that it gets you to that destination successfully from that, that current age until date of death successfully without outliving your retirement savings. And this is something that's so common. This is why individuals cannot properly retire. It's because, well, first off, a lot of that education has really gone by the wayside. There's not a lot of education out there. And then, second off, a lot of individuals, they want to make sure that they're setting it up. They just don't know how to do it. So a really quick strategy that I want to go over with you, and you could always use it on your own. You could always give us a call and ask to speak to a specialist and have us walk you through, how to leverage this sort of strategy, is something that I call the 3-thing scenario. Or sometimes I call it the retire sharp planning system. It's basically just using a little bit of math and science that would accomplish an individual's retirement goals, making sure that you're not placing too much money towards an income play, too much money towards an emergency play, or too much money towards a growth play, but you're having a perfect balance amongst all 3 of those components. So as I pause the video, I wanted to basically create a fictitious client, but this is a situation that we deal with all the time. Let's just say that I have a husband, I'm dealing with a husband and wife, and they're both age 60. The husband has a 401k valued at right around $500,000. He's eligible to roll over this 401k. And they also have about $80,000 sitting in their checking and savings account. Their goals are that they want to retire at age 65, and after doing a budget analysis, we understand that they have $80,000 of expenses that they're going to need to suffice year by year by year when they hit that age 65. Their Social Security income at age 65 is going to be $40,000, and the wife has a pension plan of joint income that will be coming to them of $20,000. So you could always kind of, tweak it to your situation. If, let's say, your expense need is a lot less, or you're not having a pension plan, or your Social Security income's higher, obviously you could tweak that to that sort of situation. Rather than just blindly say, okay, go and put the $500,000 and just invest it and, risk your money and everything should work itself out. Well, yeah, that strategy could work out, but, why would you want to have some sort of uncertainty? Why would you want to have some sort of question mark in there when you could now optimize everything and mainly customize and segment different IRA accounts that will accomplish their goal and make sure that they're leaving as much money as in their discretionary and their growth related play as possible, so that they can have it as fund monies, as their vacation fund, as whatever they need to actually risk. So you're not risking the monies that you need that's for that income stream. You're not risking the monies that you need for your emergency. You're only risking the monies that are set up primarily as a growth play, as an inheritance play, inheritance maximization play, dependent upon this individual situation. So when we're looking at the three things scenario, understand that we have to, in order to move on to step 2, you need to accomplish step 1. In order to move on to step 3, you need to accomplish step 1 and 2. Step 1 is income, step 2 is emergency, and then step 3 is going to be growth/inflation. So when we're looking at this situation, when we're trying to figure out this income goal, well, we understand that this person needs $80,000 of income to suffice their expenses throughout retirement. This husband and wife needs $80,000 of income to suffice their retirement expenses. So this needs to be at least greater than or equal to, there has to be some sort of income streams that they're no longer working at that age 65. There has to be some sort of income streams that are coming to them that get triggered at that age 65 marker that at least is going to be greater than or equal to the $80,000 of expenses. We understand when we're looking at the drawing board of what are some cash flow options, some residual income that's coming to them. It's going to be Social Security income of $40,000, and then the wife's pension, the joint pension plan of $20,000 is only going to bring this ultimate income goal, or this income dollar amount, this lifetime income dollar amount of $60,000. So therefore, there's a gap of $20,000 in this example. So if somebody is eligible for a 401k rollover at age 60 and they still have 5 years left to retirement, what we would look at is, okay, what sort of product, what sort of customized IRA can we go and leverage to make sure that it's going to trigger $20,000 of income to suffice that gap? Out of the $500,000 from the 401k, the most important, or the $80,000 of the savings, the most important thing is to leverage the least amount possible and only as much as necessary that will accomplish all three of these goals. So we have a $20,000 gap. When we go to the drawing board based upon their area, based upon their situation, there might be, a little over 1,100. Typically, there's over 1,100 different insurance and annuity related options available that would provide them income with a 5-year deferral that they'd be able to trigger at that age 65 for joint income. Even though the 401k is over in the male's name, there's different joint benefits or joint income benefits that, because the spouse, the wife, if she's the sole primary beneficiary, she also has access to joint spousal benefits off of the male's IRA account if it's set up with the proper annuity. Some annuities allow it, some annuities don't. So it's all about finding out of these 1,100 plus different contracts, different options. It's not just going to a random XYZ company. It's saying, mathematically, whichever one is going to produce the top cash flow, we utilize what that top cash flow is, what the top product is, and then we divide it by whatever the need is, in this case, the gap of $20,000. So long story short, for this step 1, out of the $500,000, maybe it's only going to cost this person $150,000 to place with the top annuity contract, IRA annuity, that's going to produce them exactly $20,000 of lifetime income to the day that the second spouse passes away. Regardless if they live for 10 years, 20 years, if they live to, age 110, 120, this income will still be coming to them, and out of their $500,000 only cost them $150,000 to accomplish that goal. By only using the $150,000, this individual now has $350,000 left over to accomplish step 2 and step 3. Well, when we look at what this individual's assets are, step 2 is emergency. So rule of thumb is somebody wants to leave at least 6 to 12 months, or should have about 6 to 12 months of what their expenses are into some sort of liquid cash, some sort of savings component that they could access at the drop of a hat. If that means a medical ailment, somebody comes and let's say a tree comes and falls through that person's car, through the house or whatever, and they need to fix something up, they at least have access to those emergency funds, at any time possible, so that they could always, pay off whatever that need is, and they don't have to dip and dig penalties and surrender charges and all these other negatives that could essentially be a detriment to their plan. Because they have a savings of $80,000, that will suffice this step 2. So therefore, there's nothing out of the 401k that had to be used up for the step 2. There was only $150,000 that had to get rolled over to a customized IRA in step 1. So this is IRA number 1. So now this tells us that step 2 was accomplished through this savings need, through the savings account, checking account. And now step 3, we have $350,000 to play with. If this person wants to be a little bit more aggressive and try to beat out the pace of inflation and, leverage top IRAs with, customization that's better than what they're currently sitting with the funds in their 401k account, because understand, with the IRA, they have more eggs in their basket to choose from. They could either go super fixed with, different bank-related products. They could leverage insurance companies and their fixed index annuities, their fixed annuities. They could leverage, market link CDs through a bank. They could leverage the different investments with the stocks, bonds, ETFs, like I mentioned, with the type of accumulation phase. So there's a whole slew of different things. You could essentially take this $350,000 that's going into step 3. You could say, okay, put $200,000 into the market, into different investments, take $100,000, put that into really safe, fixed related accounts. And then you have the other, $50,000, which now is going to go into some maybe, fixed index related accounts. So what you're doing is you're taking the original $500,000. Now we're segmenting them towards a max income need, a max emergency need, $580,000 because we're obviously still incorporating this checking account, max income need, a max emergency need. And now, so there's one IRA for the income need, and you might have, let's say, IRA number 2 for $200,000, IRA number 3 for $100,000, and then IRA number 4 for $50,000. And now these monies on step 3 are growing and growing and growing. If, let's say, this person, this individual's or this couple's expenses increase the further and further that they're living, well, then we have enough monies on this discretionary side to pull from to accomplish that inflationary need. But, most importantly, we have that floor. We have that floor of income between the Social Security, between the pension income, and then the annuity income that will suffice their joint lifetime income. Typically on the step 1 side, I like leveraging hybrid annuities just because it gives the person more flexibility, stating that, after one spouse passes away, the second spouse will still be receiving the income. When the second spouse passes away, whatever's remaining in their account balance would get left over to beneficiaries. So they're not completely surrendering their monies like they would on like an immediate annuity or naked deferred income annuity. So there's some really neat features that you could do that you could essentially customize with all of these different avenues, with these IRAs and with the 3 things scenario. And I apologize for the sloppiness of the handwriting. I just, I hope that everything makes sense and you were able to follow along easily. So I hope that you found value in this video. If you want to speak to a specialist, just give our 1-800 number a call. It's 1-800-566-1002. We're available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. A more effective route in scheduling an appointment specific to a specialist that will deal with this sort of video. Obviously, you call in, you could ask to speak to me directly. My name is Derek Afasi. I'm the owner of the company. But a more efficient route would be going to our website. Our website's going to be in the description of this video, which is retiresharp.com, or you go to afasifinancial.com. They're both going to bring you to the same place of afasifinancial.com, and then you're going to see this little icon that's going to pop up after like 10 seconds. It says book your strategy session. So this is linked directly with some of our specialists and their calendars so that you could always schedule an appointment that's most convenient for you. If, let's say, there's a really late appointment and that works more effective for you, depending upon if you guys are over on the West Coast or whatever, whatever might pertain best with your schedule, just kind of leave a note in the notes section, and then we'll make sure that to accommodate it accordingly. And that's essentially it. So, I really hope you found value in this. Please feel free to subscribe to our YouTube channel, Retire Sharp, so you could have access to the most updated videos. And, we look forward to helping you guys out. Thank you so much.